let's get started here. All right. So quick introductions. I'm Carlos and Dr. Cooper. I mentioned who BootUp is. What we do, in short, is we prepare teachers to teach coding using block-based programming in grades K to 5, all across the country, but specifically in New York. I'll talk a little bit about the districts that we work with. Generally, our curriculum is open source. You can find it free and open source. You can find it on our website. We train teachers on this curriculum, and we go to their sites and we model teach. So we show them how to get started with our curriculum throughout the year. We also train instructional coaches. So we're trying to build capacity and support within the school district as sort of we're going through professional development. This is an overview of the program, some of the big components that I talked about. This is sort of like just an example of how professional development is generally scaffolded, right? So it's about a series of 6 3-hour-long sessions per grade band for K2 and 3-5 up to 6th grade. And we do PD, we have on-site support, and we do instructional coaching support on our curriculum. I'll skip over some of kind of the big components. Obviously, if folks are here and they're excited to learn more about elementary computer programming, you kind of are sort of ready bought into the idea of computer science. But generally, our unique approach to computer science is really focused on, I would say, 2 things that are here. It's really about building confidence, right? And having students learn coding, not just for the sake of learning how to program with block-based programming, but it's really so they can understand kind of like what are their interests and sort of what is their ability to code and why is it important for them to know how to code, right? So it's really trying to dig in deep and allow students to personalize their own learning and to sort of drive a lot of the learning that they're doing in their coding class. And if you notice, when you look at our curriculum, this is really sort of the pivot and the core part of our curriculum is project-based learning, sort of leading through personalization, and really encouraging students to sort of build a healthy and strong identity as coders as early as kindergarten. Run through these numbers really quickly. They're super important. I want to get to share some of the videos. We've roughly impacted around 600,000 students already across the country. You can see our growth throughout the last 6 years. This is roughly about 3,500 teachers trained and 2,900 teachers that we've impacted passively, right? So we train teachers. These teachers sometimes go and run professional development, their district or their schools. So this is the additional numbers of educators impacted. We're in around 65 school districts across the country in 26 states. This is our general demographics of our students. So 91% are underrepresented groups in computer science. That means they do not reflect the majority, or 91% sort of, they do not reflect the current majority of folks going into studying computer science or working in tech already. 66% attend schools where they're eligible for free and reduced lunch, and 82% of our students impacted by our programs are students of color. What this means and looks like in New York State, we are working in 7 districts. Maybe some of you are predominant in New York City, but we also work in Suffolk County and Westchester County. But in New York City, we've worked with districts 1 and 26. Our partnerships with them have completed, but we're currently actively working with District 24 in Queens, District 27 in Queens, and then District 32 in Brooklyn and in Bushwick. So with that, I was going to show a little bit of part of a video to showcase some of the work that we've done in District 27. And then I'll hand it over to Dr. Cooper to share a little bit of his insights on the partnership.
And
So let me situate this video a little bit. So part of it was showcasing some of the classroom and model site visits that we did. And this is a student showing off their project and sort of talking through what they created. This really sort of highlights the way we like to tackle or present our curriculum. Really, it's about students exploring, tinkering while using coding, and then being able to actively sort of reflect and think about what they created.
It's Hayden, and I made a maze in Scratch Junior. And when I tap the arrows, it moved. And when the dragon reached to the page, it wins. And the closed message is sends
to the dragon.
Sent to the dragon, and the dragons open the message
And moves.
and move.
Hi, my name is Valeria Vasquez from class 3-305. Today I'm going to be answering some questions about computer science. The first question is, what do you like about computer science? What I like about computer science is that they always get us to do fun projects. The second question is, what is some things you learned while working on computer science projects? Some things that I learned is to be helpful and to help others with the projects and things that they do not know how to do. The last and final question is, why is learning computer science important? The reason that I think computer science is important for us is because it helps us be helpful and also be very intelligent and be creative on doing things, for example, shoes and other type of projects. Thank you.
About computer science. Something that I like about computer science is that we get to do fun projects on computers and Scratch. The next, computer science is important because maybe you have to use the skills from computer science that you learn from your computer science teacher later on, like in college, high school, or whatever.
No, bro.
I'll pause there and head over to the next slide, Dr. Cooper. There we go. Oh no. Let's see here. Something happened with the deck. Let's see here. It's hidden. There we go. So handing it off to you, Dr. Cooper, could you just describe a little bit about how coding looks like in your district currently, and maybe before we started our work together and how it looks like now?
Sure. So again, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So prior to our collaboration with BootUp and Amazon Future Engineers, we really didn't have an idea in District 27 as to who was engaging their students in coding and who wasn't. But this partnership allowed us to gather a lot of data around what was already in place, and it gave us a great starting point for how we could build coherency in the district to ensure that there was an equitable distribution of information to teachers, so that all students, right, we have about, District 27 comprises about 5 different geographical locations, and we want to make sure that each of those geographical locations had schools that were engaged in coding. So again, like I said before, prior to our partnership, we really didn't have a sense of who was doing coding and who wasn't. But because of this partnership, we've been able to gather data to determine which schools are engaging in coding. When I talk about coding, I am referring to Scratch and Scratch Junior. And really, we're able to create some cohorts through which we got schools that never had coding before, introduced into their schools. So currently, I believe we have about, I'd say out of the 50 schools, we have about 30 that are now, we have teachers planted in 30 schools who have been trained in Scratch and Scratch Junior and who are more than capable of turnkeying what they learned to other teachers in the school building. So in phase 2 of this initiative, we're looking to encourage principals to not only offer coding in the one class that the teacher was trained in, but multiple teachers on a grade. And we're also advocating that at least twice a week, if possible, and not in isolation, but maybe through an integration of other subject areas, because I think that the great thing about Scratch and Scratch Junior is that it provides the opportunity for interdisciplinary learning to happen. So thinking outside the box, I think it's very realistic that we can have coding happening more than once a week in class, and even more than that. We also have some schools that are pretty advanced in the process. In the video that we didn't get a chance to see the entirety of it, but we definitely have some schools, bulletin boards and standard-based work, and student work on display. So we definitely want to build on that and possibly do a technology summit this year where we give students,
We can still hear you though, so your voice is still on.
Okay, great. Yeah, so whereby which we can give students more agency in presenting their work, and as you just saw, testimonials, and even recruiting students to teach other students how to code, because I think that it's a great motivator to get other students involved.
Thank you for that, Dr. Cooper. And then are there any kind of big lessons that you've learned while trying to expand K-5 computer science in your district that would be, I feel most folks in the call are teachers, but maybe from a teacher and an administrator perspective, what's something that you've learned throughout this process?
So one thing, I guess because we had the grant, we were able to use the monies to provide per session, right, over time to teachers, and they're willing to come out if you pay them and learn the curriculum. So that was a great way of using the money. We also were able to provide schools with monies to cover teachers for a full day so they can come out to full day trainings. And that's something that we're trying to do this year because we feel like providing teachers with full day equipment is a lot more effective and than having the 2-hour per session opportunities that we were offering before. During the day, teachers have a lot more energy and they're more engaged than they are at the end of the day after they worked, and I had to work with their children. So definitely, I think during the day, full day professional development is more effective. But if you don't have the funding to get principals to release their teachers, then I think the alternative is also pretty good. Something else I learned, I think that Scratch and Scratch Junior are definitely great programs to use to introduce students to coding. And I think that students catch on pretty quickly to the concepts involved in coding. So I definitely think these are great programs to use to introduce students to coding. And it is feasible for you to do it at least once in a week. And now we're trying to push for more than that. And I think to go back, another thing I learned is that, you know, when you think about how to integrate coding into your schools, think about it from the perspective of doing it, you know, from an interdisciplinary standpoint, right? Because if you can figure out, and there are tons of resources that you can use, teachers can use to incorporate coding into math, science, social studies, and even ELA, and as enrichment opportunities. And so you are building critical thinking. You are encouraging students to use the analytical skills to be able to use what they've learned, right? The knowledge and the skills that they've acquired in new and novel ways, right? So Scratch Junior, they can provide those opportunities for you. And the great thing is that you don't have to have you don't have to have a desktop computer. You can have an iPad, you can use your phone, right? Although using your phone might be a little bit limiting because of the size of the screen, but definitely iPads are great for doing Scratch Junior. So hopefully that information helped.
Thank you for that. I think you really hit home on the integration component, which is actually the next part that I'll talk about, really highlighting about what's the best way to structure professional development. And definitely big patterns is around maybe doing these workshops during the school day, right? And finding time to, it's always difficult to pull educators out of a classroom, but these are sort of making sure sort of how to balance out the new professional development time with current expectations. I think those are lessons that we're seeing across many districts, both in New York City and outside. But any other, anything you'd like to share before we, would you like me to leave you on the call, or would you like me to drop off? Like, what would you prefer?
Oh, I can stay on. I don't know if anybody has any questions, or yeah, I'll stay on. It's fine.
Perfect. So maybe they'll go to this next part, do it short, like quickly, and then come back to a Q&A if folks have some questions for you or for me.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. All right. So as Dr. Cooper was talking, there are many ways to teach BootUp, right, in our curriculum. And I'm going to show that in a little bit, because I know there's probably a lot of educators that are like, tell me more about the curriculum. Where can I find it? How does it work? So I'll do that briefly, shortly. But I wanted to show some of the work, how it looks like just as a coding project, and how it looks like an integration, right? So on the left is actually a student that completed, this is lesson number 3 in our K2 sequence with Scratch Junior.
Go ahead. That baby's riding the horse. Awesome.
So, okay, so it's like student, this is the first lesson. This is the first time coding in this classroom, and they were able to build out a simple program that has 3 sprites that move when you click the green flag, right? So this was within a period of 30 minutes, and we walk educators through, this is lesson number 3 from our curriculum. But as we work with educators, as Dr. Cooper was mentioning, educators really start wondering, how might I use and leverage coding, particularly block-based coding languages, to teach in an integrated manner. So this is an example of educator taking the life cycle of a butterfly project and actually having students model the life cycle on Scratch Junior, right? So making that connection between the skills that you're learning in coding and applying them to demonstrating subject matter sort of knowledge. This is an example in K2, and these are a couple of examples in 3.5. And the one that I wanted to highlight is a student project around mathematics, and I believe this one's about fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and I know I'm going to probably have to switch over the screen I'm sharing, so I'm going to do that really quickly. Let me double check. Yep, you can see it. So this is a project. This was built out by a 3rd grader. And let's see what the instructions say. Press the green flag to find the area. This is a little speech. So what is the length? Anyone in the chat want to drop in what they think the length is for? I'll put it in, let's see, 9 if folks want to press what the next one is. So what is the width? Yes, Kevin, thank you, 9. So the width is 5. And then I have to calculate the area of the rectangle. Sort of anyone in the chat? 45. Let's try that out. I'm correct. So it goes on to the next one. So if I go here and I see the code, what we see here is like a pretty complex set of block types. But you can tell this is definitely made by a newer coder, because if you can notice, it's one entire long piece of code, right? So more complex code. This is a 3rd grader, but definitely really understanding how to use variables, how to use sensing blocks, how to build conditionals. So this was a lesson that we have in our curriculum, and it's lesson 7 in our Scratch curriculum. So roughly students have already done about 6 projects. So this is totally realistic to expect this level of coding with students. Obviously, to get students here, we've done a lot of coaching with our educators, right? Not only understanding how to use the blocks, but also exposing them to template projects, right? So before this project, they actually learned how to, they looked at a project that used some of these variables and weight and conditionals, and they understood how to build quizzes, right? So they learned the coding component, and then the challenge was like, okay, you just learned how to build this quiz, learning facts about your friends. Now I want you to take what you've learned and apply it to what we're studying in mathematics, which is quizzing each other on not what your favorite color is, like what your favorite show is, but how to find the area of these rectangles, right? So really taking our BootUp lesson and driving the integration component with it. I'll pause there. Any questions on the project that I just showed? And I know a couple of folks have joined in a little bit late. So if you're wondering, oh, where's this presentation? I'm going to go ahead and drop it in the chat again. All right. Yeah, so I just wanted to like conclude this part, open it up for any Q&A for me or Dr. Cooper. And I'm going to show the curriculum because I know that's something probably folks are interested in. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can send me an email at carlos@bootuppd.org. You can also email info@bootuppd.org. And this is anything if you have a question of like, hey, how can I learn more about your curriculum? How can I connect you with decision makers in my district or in my school? What type of funding opportunities do you have for bringing professional development to our school or our school district? So these are, if you want to learn more, connect us with folks in your district or school, like please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly or info. This goes to our partnerships person, and her name's Suzanne, and she would sort of follow up and just say, hey, like I learned about BootUp at the CS for New York State Summit. So she'll know like, oh, okay, so you were at Carlos's presentation. All right, so the last thing I'll show, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, is the our curriculum. So where to find it. Let me do here. Let's see here. Share screen. All right. So here I am in our main website, and I'm going to go ahead and also drop that in the chat. And in the website, you notice there's a tab up here called Teachers on the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to click there. And there's an overview of our curriculum guide, unplugged activities, et cetera. There's a lot of good stuff down there. But you'll select one of the grade levels that you work with. In this example, I'll pick, let's do K2 Scratch Junior. And here you have all our lessons. So that that lesson I showed of the student, or that video I showed of the student that had built that dancing dancing project with the horse, that's actually Dance Party. It's lesson number 3. And I'm going to scroll really quickly, and I hope no one gets nauseous. There, I believe in K2, there's 53 projects now. So a lot of coding projects for students. And I'm going to click on number 3, which is the one that was in the video. And we have our lesson plans available entirely on our website. So you can kind of see the project preview, which is going to show you what. So it's kind of an exemplar of what students will be building. There's an at a glance, which kind of has the standards, like all the stuff you need, vocabulary, resources, connections. The project sequence, which actually is the core of the lesson plan, which breaks down each step of the project that you would need to create with students, and extended learning opportunities. So this has like debugging exercises, unplugged activities, differentiation suggestions. Or if you prefer more of the traditional lesson plan format, if you click on the lesson plan link, it will take you to and I need to stop sharing here because it did stop that. Let me share that again. Actually, I'm just going to share the entire window, and hopefully that will solve the issue. Yes. So when I'm in our lesson plan website, if you click here on the lesson plan link, it will open up a lesson plan in Google Docs. All the things I talked about in the website are actually embedded in the Google Doc. So it's just a matter of preference if you prefer using our website or if you prefer using a Google Doc. This you can make a copy of. You can make edits of when you make a copy. And as I mentioned, our curriculum is free and open, so you can make any edits to it as you see fit when you're working directly with students. And that is the K2 component. Again, if you just go back to teachers and you click on Scratch, this will highlight the all the Scratch components. These are for grades 3 and above. And with this one, I believe there are 41 class projects. And the one that I showed about Area is actually a remake or a redux of number 7, which is a friend of mine. And this is a project that shows students how to build quizzes, right? So after students completed this project, there was an extension before moving on to the next project where they worked on building these area quizzes to quiz each other in a classroom. So I will pause there. Are there any questions for me, Dr. Cooper, about BootUp, about our curriculum? And you're still on the line, Dr. Cooper?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, awesome.
Carlos, and while we're waiting for people to ask questions, I will be transparent and say that prior to BootUp, I did not know how to use Scratch or Scratch Junior. So it definitely gave me an opportunity as an adult learner to acquire a foundational understanding of coding that I appreciate, and it really just reinforces my belief in ensuring that as many students as we can get in 227 are exposed as early as possible to this experience, because we know that the job force in the future is that having those coding skills is going to definitely help students be better prepared for the job force of the future.
Yeah, so it's trying to make those connections to career and college early on, right? Before these skills are sort of even in the, like, I'm going to use this to become, like a coder, is like trying to build that knowledge early on. There's a question from Emily, and I'm assuming this is about the lessons. Is this during a separate time of day, or where teachers are able to connect it with what they are teaching. So it's both, right? Our curriculum is based on computer science. So for those of you that are technology, media specialists, you're already teaching a tech component, you don't have to find the additional time to add CS to your schedule. As I showed in some of the project previews, like the life cycle, some educators have to take our projects and think through, okay, this project that we just built in professional development, I'm going to leverage that and turn it into a science project, or as I just showed in that example, in a math project. Regardless, though, there is some teaching of coding that's needed, right? And this is where there has to be some sort of movement around of like, okay, when am I going to find the time to work on my students on the coding component in order to have them sort of drive at the content knowledge, right? In case if you're going to do a project about a life cycle, you maybe already have the content about what a butterfly life cycle looks like. Maybe you don't. So I'm going to leverage building out this project on Scratch Junior. I'm going to show it to you, and your challenge is going to be, hey, showing the life cycle of a butterfly. So there's different ways of tackling the integration component to find enough time, but generally most educators we work with have to teach in an integrated fashion, especially if you're a classroom teacher and not a tech specialist. Thank you, Emily. Any other questions? Good question on the life cycle one. It is not actually, as I mentioned during what a lot of educators do is that they take an existing project, and let me find it in Scratch Junior, and they build out what it would look like in that lesson. So here, let me share my screen again. So I'm back in the Scratch Junior curriculum, and that life cycle project was essentially the extension of two projects. Number 6, which is a fidget spinner, where students learn how to code a drawing that every time they click on it, there's some movement. And the outer space project, which is number 7, which is you're building some interaction between sprites, right? So it's when we're going through professional development, we work with teachers and say, okay, lesson 6, this is how it stands in a coding structure. How else might you change it and adapt it to fit with your classroom? And this educator, after doing lessons 6 and 7, they thought, okay, instead of teaching the fidget spinner, I'm actually going to show them how to draw butterfly sprites instead, and maybe have them code some movement. And then with 7, I'm actually going to have them model the life cycle instead of modeling what it would be like to be in outer space. Hopefully that answered your question, Kristen, but I'll go ahead and just, if you are curious and don't have the link, share the one to the BootUp resources. And that's for K2. All right, any other questions?